Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, the 20th of October 2015, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio, Mike Robinson, and we're going to be joined by live video link with Guy Taylor. Guy, you're there in the Hereford area, and I believe you've said there are no clouds.
No clouds in the sky. Very bright, beautiful day.
Okay, well that's pretty good. Reports across the rest of the country, a little bit variable. We've got Manchester teaming up with Holland today. This is obviously part of the European cooperation programme, and they're sharing clouds. But Pembrokeshire, Norfolk, Plymouth, sunny, and Hereford, as you've said, pretty good as well.
Yeah.
If only the situation in UK was so sunny. What is your update? You've been busy in the courts. You've got a report on the Bodenham situation, which is essentially about the stealing of property. Have you got some good news for us today?
Yeah, I've got some very good news, Brian. I've actually, at long last, got a date for a trial in the Crown Court. Of course, I went through all the magistrates' courts, etc., to be able to get there. But there's a 2-day trial being set for Hereford Crown Court on December the 10th and 11th. There's plenty of room in the Crown Court, so hopefully there'll be plenty of support, and we'll put the thing right. I've been charged, I was charged originally under the Legal Aid and Sentencing Act 2012, which is trespass on my own property, section 144 of that, which is a fairly new offence, as it were. I say offence lightly. But of course, it's a summary-only offence, so the only way I could get this thing heard was by taking it all the way into the Crown Court, which is where we're going to be on the 10th and the 11th. Of course, the situation is that, really and truthfully, all of it's around trespass, and trespass is my intent to trespass. In law, they call it my mens rea. Well, my only mens rea was if the banks are going to rob me and my family of all our properties and all our belongings, then my only mens rea was to get them into a criminal court of record, i.e. the Crown Court, and that's going to be achieved on the 10th and the 11th, so we can expose all of the civil wrongdoing that's gone on inside these fake civil courts in the Crown Court, in front of the public, and for and on the record.
Will that be in front of a jury, Guy?
No, unfortunately, they won't give me that facility because it's a summary-only offence. But because we've appealed it from the Magistrates' Court, so it's an absolute. The Magistrates' Court was a dress rehearsal for what's going to go on in the Crown, and what's going to go on in the Crown apparently is there's going to be a single judge, Judge Hooper, I've been informed, and 2 magistrates with him. That's going to be. But in essence, this is what I wanted all along. My only intent in all this, from going back up to Bodenham, was to get this whole situation exposed, and so my intent will have been realised on that day by getting it actually in a public court and heard for on the record.
Right. Guy, we are receiving more and more reports from people around the country, essentially of property being stolen. Sometimes this is to do with mortgage fraud, but we're now also starting to get some pretty deeply disturbing reports coming in of property being taken from elderly people after they get involved with the National Health Service. So we're receiving, we'll say stories at this point, stories that people who were basically elderly but in quite good health, they go into the NHS system for some reason, they then seem to go downhill, they are then either put aside into nursing homes or residential care homes, and then along comes social services, and families are more or less told, well, we've got to sell the property in order to pay for the future care of your elderly relative. Now, what some individuals are suggesting to us is that the elderly relative then dies in fairly short order. So we've got some very, very sinister stuff unfolding here, but all of it linking back to people making immense amount of money over the manipulation of property. Have you also had other people talking to you about theft of property?
We're getting it on a daily basis, Brian. And I promise you, there's no less than 3 or 4 people are contacting me on a daily basis on this exact subject. I mean, and these people are going to the police, and the police are ignoring them. And basically, I think the police have been brainwashed by criminals, and the criminals being the judiciary to a certain extent in this. We're even getting information that when people are going under the freedom of information and going to the site, what do they know? They're finding out that judges who are supposed to be a judge in their case at the High Court, upon examination, aren't ticketed to have any authority in the matter. So we've got people who aren't judges dealing with all this. And again, this is all manufactured consent. With the old people, I mean, this is going on everywhere. Especially down in Wales, I've had information for a long period of time that people are getting charges put on their property that they don't realise are on their property, and of course, then when they die, that the properties are getting taken off them, and this is going on. It's endemic, and everywhere we're getting is seizure of assets all over the place, and as I've said before, we're in the Wild West. And it's becoming more obvious every day.
Guy, thank you for that. At the end of the day, the trail always leads back to the bank. Where does ownership of these properties go? It goes to the bank. And I believe you discovered something fairly recently, which I found astonishing. I think our viewers and listeners will. But this is a little department in one of the very large banks.
Yeah, last week, because I've got this case going on in the Crown Court now, I'm able to drag the civil court procedures, kicking and screaming, into the criminal court. So the bank manager, who I've never been able to get into court, the one who claims I took a loan out that I never took out from Barclays, of course, I've been looking to get hold of him, to subpoena him for this criminal trial. And so I spent a day going through the switchboard and talking to getting put through to various numbers where they were just sending me in circles, and I couldn't get through to anyone. But eventually, there was a helpful guy on the one switchboard, and he put me through to a department which pretty much freaked me out when he put me through. And when I rang the number, it was Barclays Police Liaison Department. And when I started talking to the lady, she sounded very much like possibly a retired policewoman or a former policewoman. She got very angry when she realised I wasn't a solicitor or a police officer, and was very concerned how I had got through to the Barclays Police Liaison Department. I didn't want to get the guy in trouble. I just said it would have been someone from a switchboard. I don't know whether or not he's going to get in trouble for it if they could find out who he was. But yeah, so the bank have actually got a police liaison department,
right,
for any crimes.
And then we have to start asking some very basic questions, which is why are they there? How does liaison with the police work? Does that mean that the banks get an advance warning when crime has been committed and people are going to come looking at the banks? I mean, this is separation of powers, just disappears out the window here, doesn't it?
Well, it's just gone. And I mean, when they set up this company called Action Fraud, Action Fraud are actually City of London Police Group, which is, so anyone who reports a fraud in this country goes through the City of London Police or a department of it, or a company called Action Fraud. So, I mean, the whole thing is becoming so obviously corrupt that I don't know where people are going to go. I really don't with all this.
Well, I think probably quite a few people are going to go on the streets when they actually realise just how widespread the corruption is in the system. But it could only be that widespread if it was being condoned, if it was being coordinated, in fact, by the very people who should be there to protect us. So we're certainly looking at MPs. We're, of course, looking at judges. We must be looking at senior police officers. But it looks as if all of these agencies have been infiltrated. I'm not going to say they're all bad, because I don't believe that, but the criminal element is now firmly entrenched in government, in the judiciary, in the police, and of course within the banking system, a cartel operating. seems to me that's what we need to expose fully to the wider public to get the right result.
I mean, if we see strategic partnership anywhere, then we should be asking questions. Because when we see strategic partnership, we're looking at conflict of interest straight away. And you'll see that the police are in strategic partnerships with the council. And, again, all your work from many years ago to do with common purpose, set the agenda that we can see now in motion. I mean, there are strategic partnerships in all these bodies, and then they're operating under MAPA, which is this multi-agency thing. So we're finding, Brian, that anyone who's challenging the system in any way, shape or form is becoming labelled with a free man on the land handle. Now, this might be someone who's just started to question whether their bill is right on something. And of course, once this label flags up, they're being treated completely discriminatory. There's discrimination against them straight away. And we're getting this from everywhere. So, I mean, anyone who's reporting crimes to the police must be noticing a change of the police's position, because the police are not engaging in conversation with people that come up labelled as being a free man on the land. And you may not be a free man on the land. You may know nothing about that. You've just asked questions about your paying your council tax or why, is my money going to fund causes of war abroad or whatever. But whatever you're asking, whatever questions you're asking, you're getting this label. And, and when the public want to address this and notify the police that they want to address it, like a few weeks ago when I supported Mickey Summers in Nottingham and a group of people, we marched to the police station all the way through Nottingham city centre. And of course, as we've previously noticed, when we get to the police station, they close it. And they only closed it for that march. An hour after the march, it was reopened. So it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter. I've been reporting crimes to the police now on numerous occasions. We're talking every week, and they won't get back to me. They won't. But yet the very solicitors who are supposed to be engaging in litigation in these issues, if I contact them by letter, they send the police around with a notice saying that I'm harassing them, even though I sent the notice, completely legitimate notice to them through the postal service. So we're dealing in tyrannical times, but I mean, the public are waking up in vast numbers, and the amount of traffic that we're getting of people needing redress is, well, amazing. I mean, the same must be going on with you.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that if the police simply refuse to engage with people and they introduce a blanket label, that is a sign that they're frightened. They can't actually deal with the information and the queries coming in. Of course, the courts have done this over many years by branding people vexatious, which actually denies that person a route to any form of justice. So I think this must be a fear factor coming in. And why would you close a police station? Well, there can only be one reason. They're getting very worried. They were scared enough to close those gates. So I think it's a balance. The pressure needs to be continued, certainly on the police, who should be bringing corrupt judges to book. Well, of course, it should be the police themselves. They are only going to do that if the public support is there. So we mustn't alienate all policemen and women. But we can keep the pressure on them, and we can educate